Hey guys, this is Nick from Mob Tales. Thanks for two guys tuning in. I know we've been on a little bit of a 2 week hiatus. Been busy with family and stuff like that, and not getting in trouble. We're trying not to. Um, we'd like to welcome today a friend that I recently met in Vegas. Really nice guy, talented, funny guy too. Um, and we were happy to have him on the show. Bret Juliano. Bret, thanks a lot for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, it's all good. I know we had a little problem getting this together because of the time difference and me, messing it up basically because I couldn't figure out what the file or whatever. I just got screwed up. But anyway, we're here. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
Uh,
it does. All good.
well, just to give people a little bit of understanding of what you do. Brett's an artist, cartoonist, very talented guy. He came up with this very interesting concept called Dust Bunny Mafia. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, "What the hell is it?" The kid's like, "What is this? A joke?" And it was pretty cool to look into it, where he created these characters that are like a sort of like a spin-off of Wise Guys, and mocking them, kind of making fun of them, that kind of thing. And so my first question, Brett, is when did you start, not this concept, but actually drawing? Like when did art and cartooning become an interest?
Oh, I was young. I was drawing when I was a kid. I would open up the Sunday morning comics and I'd be there with a stack of paper, drawing the different, newspaper characters, stuff like that. I was doing it all throughout school. Um, Originally, I wanted to be an animator for Disney. That didn't work out, but yeah, I'd been drawing pretty much all my life. And it wasn't until uh, after college that I actually started my own comic and went through wanting to make it real.
Okay. Did you study comic art or cartooning in school or no?
Nope, all self-taught. I did graphic design and logo design in school, and a couple of my first jobs were in web design. So I was, doing some things that way. And then I had a great mentor at one of uh, my interim jobs during the summer of college, um, who was teaching me all the basics of graphic design and things like that, and how to use Photoshop and Illustrator. And actually, that's more kind of how it started.
Oh, okay. Um, so from what I understand, um, around that, well, actually, before I even get to that, did you ever, okay, you did say you wanted to become an animator for Disney.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm interested because I went to School of Visual Arts. I was a comic art major. I have a BA in media arts. So I do this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't do it anymore, but I used to do it. If I did something different, I was more into like the, my favorite character is Thor, with, that kind of stuff, Marvel.
Yep.
And so I studied that. I like you, I wanted to get involved in Marvel Comics. Didn't happen because it was too competitive. Very, very difficult. Um, it didn't really matter how good you were. It's pretty much who you knew, and you
Yep.
know, it's that kind of thing. Um, but I see that you went back, like you said, after college. You went back and you revisited something you loved, which is this, and which is nothing new because there is a lot of independent comic companies out there. They spun off from like there's not just Marvel and DC anymore. There's like 100 different freaking companies.
Yep.
So when you were in that stage, you also had an interest and I guess fascination with the mob. And talking about that, which what interested you in that world to begin with? What triggered it? What book? What movie?
um, it's hard to narrow it down specifically. I've always had an interest in the criminal mind, I remember um, growing up, you know, pre-internet and everything. We used to have this game on the computer or a software program that was an encyclopedia game. And so it was, Wikipedia before the internet and everything. But it used to have a trivia game to it that you could play, and it had all this general trivia, and then it would go through random stuff. It was basically like doing Trivial Pursuit, but on a computer game. And I remember just being fascinated. I was learning, and I was um, at one point, I was, in middle school and high school, picking up books on Jack the Ripper. And, we did a whole series in high school about Anne Frank and different things like that. And so we had to do a big research project. And I did it on the Gestapo, the secret police, because it was this hidden society kind of thing. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I remember getting into uh, other literature, doing Great Gatsby, and then finding out later that some of that, there are elements of true crime, and uh, the Meyer Wolfsheim character is kind of based on Arnold Rothstein, and so it's kind of like this whole. It just kind of came together. I remember going to um, a movie and seeing Lucky Number 11. It was kind of a sleeper hit, very
Yeah, Bruce,
indie.
Bruce Willis,
Yep,
right? Yeah.
yep. Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, yeah, whole slew. And that one was like, oh, this is really cool. And that's probably the earliest that I can remember of, this one being like, I want to study more about this. Um, and then it was when I was working my day job, a little bit after I had already started my comic, where I just like wanted to get this going. Um, where I was commuting on the train in LA, and I couldn't always have my laptop with me because sometimes trains get backed up and you're crowded in your standing room only. And so I remember going to Barnes and Noble, going to the bargain book section and picking up Five Families by Selwyn Rab
Mm.
because it was $10 and it was like 800 pages. And I'm
Yep.
like, well, when I can't illustrate, I can read this book. And then that kind of definitely set like the dominoes in effect. I was like, all right, I've already got this comic going. Now it's time to incorporate some of these stories because, real life stranger than fiction kind of thing. So,
Okay. So basically, the seed was planted pretty much with the five families, pretty much. Is
yeah,
what you say. Okay. Um, and so was that the only source of reference, or did you started using reading other books just to get some other ideas?
that was the main source that started it. That was the domino to trigger it. And then after, I mean, I started picking up um, I just kind of went through whatever section of that kind of piqued my interest most. So I remember reading Mob Lawyer by Frank Regano.
Like Rihanna,
Um, so dealing with Santo Trafficante and Carlos Marcello and things like that. Um, that one was pretty early in my um, reading. And I mean, now I own over 100 true crime books. I've got a whole little library, I say, in my basement of that. I mean, I've listened to podcasts for years, like Gangland Wire by Gary Jenkins, and um, you know, Before the Lights with Tommy Canale and different things. Um, the Mobbed Up um, by the Mob Museum and different things. So I've lost count. I mean, there's so many things that I, get inspiration from now. Between those are just the 100 books are just what I own. They cover everything from Colorado to Seattle to New York. Um, but then there's numerous ones I've, you know,
Mm.
read over the years that I'm like, I don't own this. I know I've read this.
I know, I've been through that myself. Um, so this was around 2011, am I correct? roughly.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, was it, now you had Dust Bunny Mafia, then you had Mobimals, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Uh, are they connected or?
Yeah. So Mob Moles is a spinoff, technically. So kind of the journey happened where I was making the comic. I officially launched the comic in 2012. So between 2010 and 2012, I was kind of getting the ideas, getting the characters down, figuring out, how I wanted it all to work. And then it took 4 years for me to get my first book done. And so I was publishing strips 2 to 3 times a week um, from 2012 to 2016, and I had over 400, 500 strips at that point. And then in 2016, I moved from LA to Chicago, and I was transitioning in between work and different things. I didn't have a job for the first, 6, 8 months when I got out here. And so I had plenty of free time, and we lived in Oak Park. And if you know anything about Chicago, Oak Park was like one of the main hubs of where the Chicago
Mhm.
outfit lived and stuff. And so when I wasn't searching for jobs, I was digging into the history and, going to Mount Carmel Cemetery where Capone and Giancana are buried. And I was doing all this research, and um, that's when it hit me to do the based on a true story side of things. Is and that's where Mobimals came out. So I had started doing. I basically found in my research 10 different Chicago mobsters that had animal nicknames, um, like Tony Accardo, the Big Tuna, and things like that. And so that's where it kind of evolved. I was like, all right, I'm going to take these real life stories of these real characters, create this little spin off. They're still in my world, but it's not really connected. Like they weren't showing up in the comics or anything. Um, but I was like, I'm doing a mob comic. It's all related to the.
Okay. Um, Now all these characters, right? Like Leo the Boss, Benny the Bookie, all these guys. Um, so are these characters based on some real mobsters?
Um, from the original cast, not really. Um, they're, conglomerations. Um, like Leo the Boss. He's my, for people that don't know, short Dust Bunny boss. He kind of like a Joe Pesci type, character is how I envision him in my head. And then like Frankie the Force, big black Dust Bunny with a bat, is the enforcer, and he kind of is like in the old show Everybody Loves Raymond. He's like the brother with the big husky guy with the baseball bat. Like, he'd be intimidating, towering over people. And so it's more just like this I'm going to take this from that, and kind of merge it all together. And
Oh, I see. Okay. So the ideas came from different places. I get it. Um, since you've done the comic and well, actually, I want to get back to the characters really. What what motivated you to make Dust Bunnies? Like what was the motivation of the that I'm like, these guys look funny. Like this is like where did he get this idea to begin with?
so the original inspiration came from sitting in traffic. Um, so I was working on my day job, living in LA, um, living alone, just graduated school, and I was commuting home on a Friday night. And it's one of the few Friday nights where I decided. So I worked in downtown LA, and I lived about 35 miles away. Um, and Friday night traffic is horrible. It's
Oh yeah.
no matter where you are, but especially LA. And
Mhm.
it used to take me 3 hours to get home on a Friday night.
Oh
And
my God.
so, yeah. And so I would stop. Originally, I would stop and go to like a little coffee shop. I would take side streets into Pasadena because that was 15 minutes, wait out the traffic, and then, you know. And so at one point, I saw DBM on somebody's license plate, and this is 2010-ish, and it was pre, internet on your cell phone kind of thing. And so I was playing oh, what could DBM stand for? Because I'm bored in traffic, I can't do anything. And I thought of Dust Bunny Mafia. And then by the time I had gotten home that night, I had identified like the six main Dust Bunny characters. Oh, this is going to be a comic, and this is how I'm going to do it. I have this little guy that has an ear cut off. I'm going to do this. Going to have a consigliere. Going to have an enforcer. Here's the main six Dust Bunnies. Boom, and that was it.
That's pretty funny. I've been in LA. I've seen the traffic. Holy shit. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Um, the Dust Bunny characters have also been part of anthologies, like Unlawful Good and Forgotten Histories. What were they about exactly?
So those, so I had two different things going. So I did a couple of my own books, and then for those anthologies, I um, moved to Chicago, did a couple, got involved with a couple local comic creator groups, um, and those basically were just it was a little collective. Once a year, they would put out a book, and like Unlawful Good was actually this was a big one, and it's kind of a pitch for this young, inspiring editor to work for Marvel Comics. Um, and so she wanted to get a bunch of comic artists together, artists and writers, to basically do some short stories that were all, this unlawful good idea. And I had submitted a couple pitches, wasn't able to get fully in that collection, but I created these fake advertisements. And so I did one for like Winchester rifles, and had one of my characters sitting on instead of like a stack of bones, instead it was spent shell casings, and he was on a throne of that and had rifles in both arms and stuff. Um,
I think I've seen that. That's pretty. I think I did. Um, Now the artwork that you do, I mean, do you do it is it by hand, the old style way, or is it done by strictly computer?
it's blended. So what my final product is by computer. Um, but then, but when I'm sketching, I'll storyboard, and when I have new characters and stuff like that, I'll do it all traditionally, and then I'll take a picture or scan it in, and then I'll retrace it. And
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Now, uh, using the comic books, did you ever think of doing it as a animation or like a film of your characters, taking one of the comic book stories and putting it like that?
I would love to. I've had that thought, dream, and it was more of I don't know how to get there yet, and I know I could pay people now, um, but it seemed at the previous times too much of a learning curve for something I didn't know. I didn't have any background in to do that. But that's the dream, is to get it big enough that it could be take some of my stories and either get onto a subscription platform, do like a Netflix or something like that, turn it into an animated series, like Animaniacs with good feathers or something like that. But yeah, that's the goal, is that eventually something somewhere picks up and it either goes full into like an animated show, or I could get a movie out of it, but still doing this. Um, my characters based on real life mafia, and kind of, poking fun at it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, you, one of my last questions would be is, um, so far you've done a couple of different shows, meaning like where I met you in Vegas. You've done that where you displayed your work and stuff like that. Um, do you have anything coming up that you're going to be doing soon? that you're gonna be out and about?
Yeah, so I do a lot of shows independent in Chicago. Um, so I do probably 10 to 15 at least a year, where I'll go to like different breweries. We'll do like art markets or arts and crafts shows. Uh, I stay away from like the craft shows because that gets a little kitschy. Um, but I will do like curated art gallery type events um, with my comics. And I've just been talking with Tom and Canal, trying to get about the next, future Mob Summit. So I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago for a work conference for my day job, and I was able to meet up with him and a couple other um,
Oh, that's
couple
cool.
um, couple of guys, and so I was talking to him about the future of the Mob Summit and how I'd love to, help organize, but also, if there's anything I can do to pitch in, but then also, how could the summit grow in the next couple of years and maybe get a dedicated dealer's room or vendor's room that has, authors
Mhm.
and people like ourselves, like we did last time. Um, so I'm hoping that I can, uh, be involved with that for years to come. But then I've also got a couple of events. I have two shows, uh, Saturday the 12th of October and the 19th, both in Chicago area. One's at a brewery called Miskatonic, and then I got Church Street on the 19th. It's also a brewery in the Chicago suburbs where I'll be selling my art with 20 to 30 other artists.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. I know the Mob Summit, I think they're supposed to do it next year at a golf course, I think,
Yeah,
from what I heard. That's what he told me last time. But
that's the plan.
that's the plan, yeah. Well, if people want to check out your work, purchase your merchandise, stuff like that, where would they go?
So the best way is just Google Dust Bunny Mafia. Um, so I've had this brand for almost 15 years. It's pretty easy to find me. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, um, with Dust Bunny Mafia. I'm also dustbunnymafia.com. There you can read hundreds of my comics for free. I've got an online store. I ship all over the world with my merchandise. And then I also am on the Kickstarter platform for the people that do crowdfunding campaigns. So I run about 4 campaigns a year with things like the Mobimals. And I'm gearing up for a new launch in January. Uh,
Oh, no, for the Mobimals.
yep.
Oh, okay. Very cool. All right. Well, Brett, thank you very much for coming on the show, bro. It was a lot of fun. Uh, good luck with everything. Hope to hopefully see you again. If you're in
Yeah.
Chicago, I'm in New York. I don't know. We'll meet somewhere in the middle, I guess, one of these days. You know,
Yeah. You never know when we might cross paths.
yeah, yeah, you never know. But like I said, I wish you a lot of luck. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. And guys, you got to check out his work. It's really good. Coming from an artist, you know it's got to be good. So definitely check out it. Bret Juliano, Dust Bunny Mafia. I can't get over that name. It just kills me. Well, thank you, brother.
Well, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
See ya.
Appreciate it.